so we're going to do a few more examples on this work. So if we look at number 3, the amount of interest I earned for 1 year on an investment account varies directly with the size of the deposit D. Okay, so I'm not going to read the rest of this. I'm just going to go with what they've told me here. Varies directly, underline it in red. First thing they're talking about, the first letter is I. Second letter they're talking about after the varies directly is D. So this is what we write. I equals KD. That's our start. Okay, so now that's the first step. So now we're going to take that and find K. So to find our value of K, we need 2 things, an I and a D value. So if we have a look here, this is where all the numbers is, right? You'll notice there's a number for 16 and another number for 425. We've got to work out which one's which. So it says here, Kathy earns $16 interest. So we have to go back up to the words up here and go, well, what was that talking about? And the amount of interest is I, right? So by saying that $16 interest, that is your amount of interest. So we know that that is our I value. And then it says on an investment of $425. And up here, it says the size of the deposit. You go, well, they didn't say investment, they said deposit. But it's really the same thing. So if we can work out what one of them is, like we did here, that's got to be the other letter. Okay, so that's going to be D. So now we're going to put those letters in. All right, so I is 16 equals, hang on, I might just move it up the top here so you can see what I'm doing. Just put in what I'm using. Okay, so I was 16 and D is 425. Okay, so if we come up the top here, I'm just going to write I equals KD down first. And now I'm going to put those numbers in. So 16 is going in for I and 425 is going in for D. Don't forget there's a times here. And so now I'm going to get the K by itself. That means I'm solving an equation and I'm getting rid of the times 425. So I'm going to come over here and divide by the 425. So if I go to my calculator and put that in using the fraction key, I'm going to press fraction key, 16 down arrow, 425 equals, and it doesn't change, it gives me the same thing. So I'm going to leave it. That's my K value. So now I'm going to put that K value back into here to get my equation. So I have I equals KD, and now I'll put it in. So I've got I equals 16 over 425D. I'll just put a box around that because it's a bit hard to see. I'll run into my next question. So that's my answer. That is what they wanted you to find. The variation equation for I. And see, my equation starts with I. That's what they want. And that's all you do there. Part B now says hence. Now hence means use what you just found. Okay, well I'm going to write down what I just found. That's what I just found. So let's write it down. And it says, how much will she earn on an investment of $900? How much will she earn? In other words, how much interest? So that's what we're trying to find. So the number they've given us here is the investment or the deposit. Okay, so that's how much we're putting into this account. So the 900 is going to go in the place of D. And then you're going to put all of that in your calculator and work it out. So if we put that in, 16 over 425 times 900. Now you'll get an answer that looks like this, which is not much use to us because we're trying to find an amount of money. So I'm going to use SD and it changes it to that. And that's the decimal we need for money. So I'm going to write it down. Great, I've got rid of it. Just a minute, I'll get it back again. Okay, so this is the decimal that we end up with. And it's supposed to be money, so we're going to do to two decimal places for money, $33.88. So that's how much interest you would earn on an investment of $900. Okay, now this next question is tricky. It's still in the same question. It's part C. But these are a little bit more complicated because they've got a higher order of thinking about them. But there is sort of two ways you can do it. There is a harder way and an easier way. I'll show you both so you can see what's going on. Okay, it says if Kathy's uncle doubles, this is really important, doubles the size of her investment in B, how much will she earn in interest? Okay, so the easier way of doing it, I guess, the way you'll probably all cope with pretty easily, is if you have a look in B, the investment was $900. So we are going to double $900. So in our investment is going to be 2 times, because of the doubling, $900. So that would be $1,800 being invested. Okay, so we're going to just go back to our formula that we use all the time now. Copy it down. And then we're going to just sub in what our deposit or our investment is. Times 1,800. And we're going to go to our calculator with that and see what we end up with. All right, so we're pressing into the calculator. Fraction key, 16 over 425, right arrow, times 1,800 equals, we get that ridiculous answer there, and we want money. So we want a decimal, we're going to press SD, get you to there, and we write down what we get. And we're going to 2 decimal places for money. So it's $67.76. And that's the easier way of doing it. So we're just doubling the amount that we invested back here and then putting that number into our formula. Now the harder way, it doesn't really matter here. I guess you could do the easier way and get it, but if they really want to make a tricky question, and in the seniors in year 11 and 12, you will get trickier things where you have to do it the way I'm about to show you. Okay, so the harder way would be to look at your formula. Okay, and if you think about this, if we double the investment, then this is what we're doing. Instead of investing D, we're investing 2 times D because of the doubling. Okay? Now, what difference does that make? I mean, this is going to end up being whatever it is, whatever that works out to be. Let's see what happens over here. Now, if you get your calculator out and put in just that stuff there into your calculator, so we're putting in 16 over 425 times 2. Now, if we do that, yeah, we're just going to get 32 over 425. And down the end there. Now, what they want you to see is how this answer has changed from this answer. So yes, it did change, that fraction did change, and what happened is it doubled, okay? To go from here to here, it actually was just a straight out timesing by 2. So in other words, if we looked back here at the interest we earned back here, we could just double that and get our final answer. Okay, so we can just go, I'll just use a different colour here. We can just go, therefore, the interest will be 2 times whatever you got back here, $33.88. And you're going to end up with the same answer. $67.76. Now you might go, well, why bother doing all of that? It's how the concept works that's going to make a difference when it gets to year 11 and 12. So I can't elaborate a bit any more on it than that at this stage. But they could ask a question like, if Kathy's uncle doubles the size of her investment, how will her interest change? And you would say, well, her interest would double. Okay, so whatever's happening there would be happening in the answer. All right, so don't get too worried about that if it's a problem for you. Just do it the easy way and don't panic about this. It really is a higher order of thinking. Okay, all right, so we're going to have a look at one more question. Now, this one is very vague, and these are really badly done in tests. I really don't understand why, but they are. They're very, very badly done. Okay, so there's your varies directly. And it's pretty easy what they've said there. K varies directly with L. I haven't even confused you with words. So it's just K equals, now be careful here because we have another K. All right, be very careful because that's a capital K they're using. I know it's a bit confusing, but let's just stick with it. So capital K equals, put your little K there and then the L. That's how we start them all. All right, so that's our start. Okay, next step, find K. If you go through these processes, you'll get this. You've just got to practice it. So now we have to find a capital K value and an L value that go together. So let's read the rest of this and don't just go throwing numbers anywhere because you'll probably get it wrong. Okay, so it's got if L equals 9.5 when K equals 1045, what is the value of K when L equals 1.65? Now there's three things thrown at you there. We only need two, and we need the two that go together. And that's this bit here. They've told you L equals 9.5 when K equals 1045. So they go together, all right? So we're going to put them down first. L equals 9.5, K equals 1045. Okay, so now we're going to put those in. So this is what we've got at the moment. Now we're going to put them in. Capital K is 1045. That's, we don't know. And we've put our capital K and our capital L values in. So you know what to do now. We're getting K by itself. Get rid of this. Come over to the other side and do the opposite of times 9.5, which is divide by 9.5. Okay, so now we're going to our calculator. We're going to put that in. And let's see what we end up with. 110. Okay, so we get clear one whole number of 110. We get our K value. It's got to go back in here, don't forget. So we end up with K equals, put it back in here. That is now your formula. And we still haven't finished the question, but that's our formula right there. So now we're going to use our formula. Remember, once you get the formula, you use it. So that's when you read the rest of the question. What is the value of K? So we don't know this K. When L equals 1.65. So we're going to put 1.65 in for L. This one works out pretty easy in the end. All you're doing is multiplying those two numbers together. And whatever we get will be our answer. So just put in 110 times 1.65 and you get this. And that's the answer to your question. In this one they just had numbers. There's no units that you need to write on the end or anything. But they are really badly done in exams. Okay, so good luck with your homework. If there's any issues or any problems, email me.